Hi, everyone. Welcome back to school night. My name is Stephanie Castellano, and I am one of the art teachers here at Rutherford High School. I teach the AP Art History class, and in addition to teaching AP Art History, I also teach all three levels of ceramics, art by computer design, and occasionally photography. I'm also the advisor of Art Club, so many of you I've met before in one of the art rooms. So it's nice to see you again, and those of you who I haven't met, hello, it is nice to meet you. I wish we could be meeting in person. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about AP Art History. AP Art History is obviously an AP College Board course. It is a full year course, and students will be taking the exam in May. I'll talk a little bit about the exam as I go through the slideshow. But I'm going to talk to you first a little bit about how the students get graded, so you understand, what they're in for in terms of their grades. So I've broken grades down into 4 segments. First, we have in-class participation. So this year, since we're talking about a hybrid year, their in-class participation is both in person in the classroom and virtual. Now, the way I'm running the AP Art History class is that we're going to be Zooming pretty much every day. So everyone's doing the same thing all together. It just depends on where we're sitting. I expect students to participate in class discussion. So I open up questions to both the in-class students and to the Zoom students, sometimes simultaneously, sometimes I'll ask one or the other. And I anticipate they work on all group assignments that we complete in class. Now, the group assignments that we complete, normally when we're live, we work on poster paper and we, sit in groups, but we're doing these all on Google Drawings or shared Google Docs, shared Google slideshows. So I can watch them live as they kind of fill in the documents, so I can see how much or little they're participating. They will get project grades. So the second category is project grades, and that includes projects and a research paper. So they'll have several projects as we go throughout the year. Most of them will be concept maps that I'm going to talk about as I go through my slideshow. And they'll have one research paper when we get to Africa, the art of Africa. And that'll all be 25%. Their homework is 15%, just like every other class. And that's to include quizzes, which the quizzes will be more reading checks. There'll be short writing assignments that will be like quizzes, but that will pertain to their reading assignments, and that will practice their 15-minute free response essay. They'll have index cards for every reading, pretty much every night. I have them make index cards, like flashcards, for each of their artworks. And in the AP Art History curriculum, there are 250 artworks that the College Board requires that they know. So they'll make cards for most of those. And then, smaller homework assignments beyond that. And then the last 30% are based on their tests. They're going to have unit tests that I'm going to modify a little bit this year. It'll be multiple choice, short free response, and then they'll also have timed essays. 30-minute timed essays, and they're going to have their first one on Wednesday. So, Wednesday of this week, September 23rd. So we'll see how that goes. And that'll kind of be a pre-assessment for me so I can see how much they understand and how well they write, and we can move forward from there. So there have been some changes to the AP registration over the course of the last 2 years. So the new exam ordering deadline is November 13th. So you will all need to pay for the exam and send that in before November. And each of the students needs to be registered online to the College Board account with a class code from me. And I've already given them that, and they've all registered into the class. So they have access to the College Board website and to the AP Art History resources that the College Board provides. Here are some of the course curriculum big ideas. So there are 5 big ideas, and each of the areas that we look at are based on, or each of the artworks that we look at are based on each of these big ideas. So we look at culture and the influence of different cultures on each other and on art and art making, the interaction with different cultures and how they affect art and art making, different theories and interpretations of art and how they change based on, or how they're affected by different disciplines, technology, or evidence, and often theories and interpretations can change over time. Materials, processes, and techniques. So we talk about, different artists over time, their access to materials and processes and the different techniques and how those evolve over time. And last is the purpose and audience. So the purpose of the artist when they made the artwork, the intended audience, who the artwork is meant to be made for or who's meant to see it, or the patron of the art, like who hired the artist to create it and why. Okay, so we start in our AP Art history all the way back in the Hall of Bulls in Lascaux, France, prehistoric times, which we've already discussed. We move pretty quickly. And some of the assignments that we do in class, some of the class assignments, we compare and contrast a lot. One of the essays, long essays on the exam, is a compare and contrast essay, comparison essay. So we do a lot of that. So often I will take two pieces and we'll compare them. We'll look at similarities and we'll look at some differences they have. This is actually from last week. So this is an assignment they did digitally in Google Draw, and we looked at a theme. So we will base a lot of our works on themes, and we'll compare works over time based on those themes. So this theme was landforms, and I encourage them to annotate and make connections and talk about, what some of the similarities are between these pieces. And, we analyze and delve deep into that. We're going to move on starting on Thursday, September 24th. We're going to move on to Unit 2, which is the Ancient Near East. So we'll look at some of the conventions of art, and we'll stay in the Mediterranean and look at ancient Egypt. Here's an example of a comparison that we do later where we're looking at the theme of funerary works. Once we get into Etruscan and Greek and Roman works, and we compare these all together. And this is a Google Doc where we're comparing and contrasting, and we look at the form, function, content, and context of every piece. Now, I spoke earlier about some of the projects that they'll be working on. Here is an example of a project that they will make. This year, students will be creating them in their sketchbooks. So they have a sketchbook for class. And they will be comparing and contrasting different pieces across cultures and time periods. And they will all have different themes. So this theme is history and memory in war memorials. Here's another big theme, women in art. And we will do those concept maps over each of the units. So moving on through our timeline, we'll study Greek and Roman architecture, talk about the Parthenon, the Acropolis. We look at religions from around the world and we compare and contrast those, and we talk about the different backgrounds and belief systems and how the architecture represents those. Look at the art of South and Eastern Asia. We look at the indigenous Americas. And we talk about how these different cultures are all creating artwork simultaneously and how they're similar yet different across the globe. So we look globally. In our African Art of Africa unit, we'll have a research paper. We'll then go into the Pacific, so the islands, Micronesia, Macaronesia. We'll go into the medieval arts, so we'll look at the architecture of the Romanesque and Gothic churches. We'll look at the Renaissance, of course. Baroque and Rococo, which come after the Renaissance. And we'll talk about the different political movements that really drove these artists. Neoclassicism, realism, and romanticism. We'll get into all the isms. And that'll move us into modernism, and we'll talk about all the isms in modernism. We'll define them and look at the different artists and how they all moved in different directions and what they were influenced by. They'll have some more concept maps when we get this far. This one's based on Salvador Dali and surrealism and the annotation and analysis of an artwork. And we will also look at contemporary works, and we'll be comparing many of the contemporary works and incorporating them into our curriculum as we go through the school year. Now, the exam will be in May of 2021. It's a 3-hour exam with 80 multiple choice questions, and the 80 questions will be in 1 hour. They'll have 2 long essays, which is another full hour. The 2 essays are a comparison and an analysis. And then they'll have 4 short essays, which are 15 minutes each. So it's a long exam, and the College Board plans for this exam to be in person and written. So different from what we did last year, which was a little bit very much different from what we normally do. And then once they complete the exam, we still have 2 months left or a month and a half left, and we work on projects. So I allow the students to kind of decide what they were interested in as the school year went on and what they'd like to work on. So this is an example of something that my students, when we talked about fresco painting, they wanted to experience painting and wet plaster. So I made a frame for them, and we mixed up wet plaster together. We laid it out in the frame. They came up with this concept with the AP Studio class. They came up with this concept of a scene from the Sistine Chapel, but instead of using God creating Adam, they made Ogre Shrek creating human Shrek, and they created this this fresco, which is now hanging in the ceramics room right now. So I'll let them choose what assignments they want. Okay, so that wraps it up for me for AP Art History. I'm sorry I went a little long. Hope you've enjoyed my presentation, and have a great night. Bye.